Welcome to the Nicholas 11x12 technology. As you've already figured out, Intel is celebrating their 20th anniversary of their Pentium brand. Today we're going to take a look at a special Intel Pentium G3258 Anniversary Edition processor. This CPU is part of Intel's latest Haswell refresh lineup, but in no means is the G3258 the smallest nor the biggest Pentium CPU on the list. The G3258 is very special, since this one is the only Pentium CPU in the whole lineup to feature a fully unlocked multiplier, just like you get to see them on K-series CPUs, such as on the big i5 and i7 processors. Don't expect to see that too soon again. This is just a little gift for us overclockers to celebrate the legendary Pentium brand. The CPU costs about $70 to $75 right now. Also, I'm not going to overclock in this review here today. I'll make a separate video on that of two overclocks, 4.2 GHz and 4.5 GHz, so stay tuned for that. As always, in the box is the CPU itself, of course, the Intel stock cooler, the installation instructions with a nice Pentium sticker on the back, and last but not least, there's also a special McAfee offer. Alright, but before we jump into the benchmarks, why not introduce the most important specs of the CPU first? The Intel Pentium G3258 is a dual-core Haswell refresh CPU that goes into the LJ1150 socket. Again, it has two cores as well as two threads, no hyper-threading here. The base clock is at 3.2 GHz and there also is no turbo boost available. As for the integrated graphics, it comes with the standard Intel HD graphics iGPU. However, that's something I don't quite understand. Why does Intel keep putting their low-end iGPUs on their cheaper CPUs? This doesn't make much sense, since nobody's really going to use the more powerful iGPUs on their i5 and i7 processors. It would make much more sense to put the best iGPU on their cheaper CPUs. The TDP is at 53 watts, which is very low. The CPU is still manufactured on the 22nm process, and as for cache, there's 512 kilobytes of level 2 cache and 3 megabytes of level 3 cache. The G3258 supports dual channel memory and supports DDR3 1333 natively, but that of course doesn't mean you can't run higher speeds with it. For instance, I used an 1866 MHz kit and it ran just fine, I just want to let you know. And last but not least, this CPU features an unlocked multiplier. Good, but enough of that now. On to the benchmarks. I really ran through a lot of tests for you. 4 hours. Alright, the Intel Pentium G3258 for sure has good performance to offer for its low price point. The raw CPU performance, of course, isn't mind-blowing, but keep in mind there's some performance headroom available thanks to the unlocked multiplier. I tried overclocking and 4.2 GHz were extremely easy to achieve. I even overclocked to 4.5 GHz, which was a bit harder to achieve with a solid voltage, but it was still fairly easy. I don't want to spoil you too much about the performance gain when you overclock this chip, but so far I can tell you the G3258 is begging you to overclock it. The AMD A10750K, in terms of raw CPU performance in synthetic benchmarks or in real-life scenarios such as video rendering, of course does better, but also costs a lot more. Playing games works surprisingly well with this cheap dual-core CPU, but of course worse than with the A10750K or an i3 CPU. In some games, CPUs don't really make a difference at all, as we've seen in Tomb Raider and Battlefield 3 for example. But then again, there are games out there such as Crysis 3 that just require 4 real CPU cores to work properly. A strong graphics card like the GTX 780 won't increase the frame rate by much. The temperatures, as you'd expect, are very low, even when using the included stock cooler. The power consumption in general can be considered as very low, but when seen proportionally, it's really amazing to see the great efficiency of the big i7 processors. The integrated graphics can't really be used at all for gaming. You for sure could turn these settings all the way down, but it still wouldn't really be a great gaming experience. The Intel Pentium G3258 is a really good processor for its amazing price point. The price-performance ratio is top-notch. What actually makes the CPU amazing is the fact that it has an unlocked multiplier. Again, make sure you don't miss my separate video on the overclocking review with the CPU overclocked to 4.2 and 4.5 GHz. For sure, this is the most interesting dual core on the market, and that's all I really have to say here. I'd definitely recommend the Intel Pentium G3258 CPU, especially when you're on a tight budget. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and visit niklas11x12techx.com to see videos there earlier than on YouTube. Also say no to ad blockers in order to support me and to make future videos possible. Thank you.